And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings across the glass.
John, as Gavin Newsom continues to ignore his day job, he is continuing to thrust himself on the national stage. And you know how he has that bitchy communications guy that writes all those mean tweets?
He has a couple of them.
Well, now those bitchy communication guys are writing the names of his press conferences. Later this afternoon, Governor Newsom responds to Trump's big, ugly bill.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Before we begin this next segment, I do have to issue a warning. If you have any pets in the car, roll the windows up, because once we start playing this woman's sound, your pets will jump into moving traffic to make it stop.
I guess that means it's time to see what's up with the president of United Teachers Los Angeles, Cecily Myart Cruz.
We demand higher pay.
She has a voice like a bird. Now, it might be a buzzard, but it is a bird.
Now, I will tell you, as we play this diatribe from Cecily Myart Cruz at an LAUSD board meeting last week, she starts off fairly soft, but gets progressively louder and louder and louder.
And I want you to be all the way pissed off
as she makes her demands for what LAUSD should be focusing on in their budget.
Now, whenever she starts getting worked up to the point to where she reaches climax.
Don't use that word.
I'm talking about in terms of intensity. I get the feeling that she could be like Gavin Newsom on cocaine, where she just explodes.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Let's hear what Cecily Myart Cruz is complaining about now to the LAUSD School Board.
Good morning, Cecily Myart Cruz, President, United Teachers Los Angeles.
So we start off quite muted.
Oh, yeah. She's like a teacher getting ready to take roll.
It's not going to stay there.
As this board discusses the proposed budget today, we encourage the board to consider our current reality in Los Angeles.
If you're hearing that jingling, that's because when she speaks, all of her jewelry shakes.
You can hear it. It sounds like, I don't know, you're in a medieval dungeon and the guy with the keys is walking by.
Our school communities are under attack by racist, anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ, IA+.
I love the long pause before she hit the rest of the letters.
Our school communities are under attack by racist, anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ, IA+.
I wonder if it moved on to the next page.
Militarized forces that ruthlessly kidnap kids and their family members. People are being taken by armed, masked men without...
I guess we're not lowering the temperature in the room today, are we?
Not at all.
People are being taken by armed, masked men without badges or names while at work, at home, in church, or driving down the street.
I wonder what she thought of Cynthia Gonzalez's video.
Oh, I'm sure she was with it.
You know, at one point, Cynthia Gonzalez was a LAUSD teacher, which means she was a member of UTLA.
Can you imagine those two smoking like chimneys in the teacher's lounge?
While you consider several resolutions that we strongly support, including honoring our LGBTQIA plus students and staff.
What?
She hit that twice already?
Okay.
Standing with immigrant communities and renewing the commitment to community schools.
That doesn't mean anything.
No.
Do not set those values.
Uh-oh. She's getting louder.
Don't act like you didn't know that was going to happen.
Do not set those values aside when you discuss this budget. Budgets are moral documents, and it's time to meet the moment.
What are you, Rob Bonta?
We just heard this woman talk about having a living wage. making sure that we have stability in schools.
Do you think she uses the same speech every 3 years when she says we need more money?
No, I think she goes with the flavor of the month. It's Pride Month, so we're going to hit the letters a lot in this speech.
Get that money!
If it was after George Floyd, it would all be about race.
Our students need school communities with stability now more than ever and in the next 4 years.
That doesn't mean anything.
Nope.
Stability means staffing.
There you go. Now we're back to her bread and butter.
That is experienced, familiar, and trusted. Our schools don't just need stable funding.
Now she's off to the races, kids.
Oh, she's getting wound up.
Our schools don't just need stable funding. We need the district. Y'all.
District?
Y'all.
She's the head of a teachers union, right?
She doesn't teach English.
Our schools don't just need stable funding. We need the district. Y'all.
Getting their attention.
I'm going to save this, y'all.
Y'all.
I don't have any Cecily drops in 2025. Let me get a Cecily, y'all.
You could put her in one of those Western movies.
Y'all.
Have her riding on a horse right next to John Wayne.
Poor horse.
To take responsibility and ensure critical programs at school sites succeed. We want to see a budget that includes $100 million for BSAP and the expansion of Dream Centers.
BSAP is the Black Student Achievement Plan.
And how much money does she want for that?
We want to see a budget that includes $100 million for BSAP.
$100 million?
For a program that doesn't really do anything.
When the district is broke.
And the expansion of Dream Centers and...
What?
Dream Centers? That sounds like the name of a strip club off the strip in Las Vegas.
And the expansion of Dream Centers and early education. We need it.
If you wonder why LAUSD is such a colossal failure with as big of a budget as the city of Los Angeles, it's because Cecily dictates things like the Dream Centers.
Is early education for 4-year-olds or at 5 in the morning?
Early education. We need investments in...
I think we've gone up an octave.
Yeah, we have.
We need investments in queer-affirming spaces and...
What?
Queer affirming spaces.
I don't know what that means. By the way, we're a minute 52 seconds into this. This is how we started.
Good morning, Cecily Myart Cruz.
This is where we are now.
We need investments in queer-affirming spaces and curriculum and culturally responsive supports for immigrant students.
What about queer immigrants?
Well, we need $100 million for that, too.
We need a budget that raises salaries.
There it is.
That's why she got elected.
Get that money!
We demand higher pay. We need a budget that raises salaries.
Didn't you get a 22% raise 3 years ago?
Oh, yeah. But they're looking for another contract.
Not only for our brothers, sisters, siblings in SEIU and other labor partners.
You mean the same SEIU that wants an eviction moratorium?
Yeah, that one.
And other labor partners, but for our teaching profession, we need to recruit and retain educators. You are being asked to vote on a fiscal stabilization plan before a budget is thoroughly debated. This is only going to create more fear and uncertainty and doubt for our communities. As fiduciaries, this board should not vote on the fiscal stabilization plan today.
We want to make sure you're fiscally unstable.
Well, let's just go over the reality here for a second. The organization that spends the most in these elections for school board is the teachers union. And typically, in down ballot, low information contests, those who spend the most win the most. So she is largely negotiating with people that she put in that position. The dilemma that they have is, do we give our benefactors everything they want and risk going bankrupt, and then that's in your obituary when you pass away? Or do you want to try to come up with some kind of fiscal stability, fiscal common sense for the district so you can keep the lights on?
Well, we've seen how the Oakland Teachers Union operates, and it's very similar to the LAUSD Teachers Union, UTLA. There is no school going broke because they believe the school can get bailed out by the state either through the budget or through a bond, and so they can ask for whatever they want, even if it's not feasible.
And that's basically their philosophy.
This board should not be bullied by staff who have failed to provide timely and critical information to you and our labor partners on key issues, despite numerous requests.
She getting mad.
Oh, yeah.
The board should not shy away from asking those hard questions about this budget, in particular, why staff are recommending $1 billion in new and unnecessary OPEB trust contributions, but not
You can't even read what you're mad about.
She's mad.
trust contributions.
Contributions?
Close enough.
Isn't that what you have when you're about to have the baby?
Stop.
But nothing for wage increases.
And that is front and central what she's looking for.
To address the shortage of educators and the shortage of SEIU folks.
Who brought their baby to this?
Isn't there a guy who brings his baby to LA City Council meetings and screams and yells all the time with the baby being held by him while he's doing it?
Strapped to his chest. Yeah, that's the guy that got into a fist fight with Kevin De Leon.
SEIU folks.
Cecily, you made that baby cry. That baby was not crying before Cecily got all mad.
I think if I were on an airplane, I'd rather sit next to the crying baby than Cecily.
And the shortage of SEIU folks.
She made that baby cry. Baby's like a calm environment.
Well, they're not going to get that with her.
Our classrooms need our classified staff. This is irresponsible. We appreciate the leadership of Ms. Gomez on a resolution that seeks to make the budget more transparent and to provide and prioritize the needs of students in this moment. But in this vein, we encourage the board to draw a line when it comes to proposed cuts. The board should perform a strategic review of all consulting contracts and other non-staff budgets, which have grown much.
The baby's crying again, Cess.
Well, give it more time and the adults are going to start crying too.
Which have grown much faster than labor costs. Our school communities need to feel supported, and without transparency and prioritization of student needs, the budget will not meet this moment.
She does have a lot of Rob Bonta in her.
I will close by raising our serious concerns about the School Safety Task Force.
Oh, here's the other big problem Cecily has with LAUSD.
What's that?
Well, campuses have gotten a lot more dangerous since Cecily Myart Cruz demanded that LAUSD defund the school police and take police officers out of the schools, or she wasn't going to let the kids go back into the classroom after COVID. And now LAUSD wants to bring the police back.
Oh, she's not going to like that.
I will close by raising our serious concerns about the School Safety Task Force recommendation to give schools the option to bring police back to schools based on crime data. We oppose this unacceptable and irresponsible proposal because it fails to address so many serious concerns.
You mean like crime?
You know what's funny is I'm sure workplace safety is something that is a concern for a lot of teachers. And because she is such a political radical, she doesn't care. She wants to defund the cops, even if the cops are the ones that protect her members.
Oh, it's wild. And you know what happened is they defunded the school police and they took that money that was going to police and went to service provider community organizations that were hiring security guards that had criminal records, and then one of them punched a mother in the face in a parking lot.
Seems about right.
Like, who will decide police will be on campus? Who has input into that decision? What is counted as crime in the crime data?
And that's where she wants to get creative. Well, that car wasn't really stolen. Someone else just needed to use it.
She wants to make sure that if this is being based on crime data, that she gets her hands in there, Gascon style.
You can come up with data to support almost any argument.
Is this data limited to incidents on the school campus? And if so, which ones?
I think we know which ones.
Yeah, I don't think that's hard to figure out.
Or do they plan to use crime data from the surrounding neighborhood? How will the role of...
Well, if your school is in the middle of a gang war zone, isn't that relevant to whether you need more security on the campus?
Because guess what? If they're shooting at each other outside the school, those bullets can fly inside the classrooms.
How will the role of the police be defined? Are we talking about writing truancy tickets, random searches, traffic citations, tardy sweeps, or...
Maybe, the drug dealing and the violence that's going on and that TikTok trend where the kids blow up a bathroom?
Oh, that doesn't count by her definition of as crime.
How about the TikTok trend where two kids just start kicking the crap out of each other for views on TikTok?
Or helping ICE agents take away our people?
Cecily, you've run out of time.
Oh, no beep is going to stop her.
Do not return to this model. It does not center student needs and safety. And again, UTLA stands 10 toes down with SEIU in their fight for a living wage.
Well, she started out slow, but boy, did she work herself up.
And I want you to be all the way pissed off.
That is the most powerful person in Los Angeles politics.
We're in good hands. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for the search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. It's about to plug my other show.
Why not?
Sometimes I get confused. Search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for the John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Y'all.
Know what I'm saying?
And Randy, we're on the air in Fresno now.
KMJ, 580 AM in the Central Valley, 105.9 FM, KMJnow.com. We're going to be on there doing the Fix California Hour every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. So listen live at 2 o'clock on KMJ. You might hear from Orange County Congresswoman Katie Porter.
Please.
Well, the potholes in Oakland are so bad that a grand jury has found them guilty of having awful roads.
The situation in Oakland is being described as a never-ending cycle of potholes.
It's wild, wild west out here.
I didn't notice the potholes when I was up there. My attention was mostly on all the burnt-out RVs.
That is an Oakland tradition. For more, here's Cron 4.
Drivers in Oakland are stuck in a cycle of potholes because of years of neglect. That's according to a grand jury report that was released just this week.
Shangi, you didn't fill any potholes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You think Barbara Lee's going to be jackhammering?
Nope.
Quite frankly.
Wasn't it when Antonio Villaraigosa got elected to mayor of Los Angeles, he promised he was going to fill 10,000 potholes and plant 10,000 trees?
Yeah.
He didn't do either.
that was released just this week. Thanks for joining us for KRON 4 News at 10. I'm Dan Thorne.
And I'm Noelle Bello. The report found not only are potholes a nuisance, they also create expensive liabilities for the city, costing millions of dollars in lawsuits every year.
You know, with so many potholes, I'm impressed that those donut street takeover guys are even able to do it and not go flying.
Well, could you imagine if they hit one of those potholes and then go flying into the crowd?
KRON 4's Sarah Stinson spoke with drivers who weren't surprised by the report.
The grand jury says the streets of Oakland are failing because there's a lack of repaving over decades. I asked some drivers to rate the roads, and they couldn't even give me a number 1 through 10.
Do negative numbers count?
Would be a 0. I've gotten this car has had 2 flat tires twice because of potholes.
That's a grand total of 4 tires.
The potholes are so bad, she's got 2 flats. That means 2 tires went flat because of them.
2 different times.
Is there anything less than 0?
Pothole after pothole can be seen on Oakland City streets. Drivers say they're fed up with bumpy and dangerous conditions, and they agree.
At a point, why don't you just give up on the concrete? Let's go back to dirt.
And bring back the horses and buggies while you're at it. They don't do street takeovers.
Drivers say they're fed up with bumpy and dangerous conditions, and they agree with the newly released Alameda County grand jury report that states until the city can repave on wide scale, it will not be able to escape from a cycle of pothole and pavement repairs.
Okay, what they say makes a lot of sense, and I believe them. But is this really something that needs to go to a jury?
Well, this grand jury was looking at a whole lot of problems in the city of Oakland.
Isn't the jury that matters the city council?
Well, you would think so.
Yes, this has really been this way for a very, very long time. It's not a way to run a city.
The city's Department of Transportation, also known as OCDOT, is in charge of 806 miles of paved streets.
This is, by the way, the same department that when a neighborhood was sick and tired of street takeovers and they planted and bought their own speed bumps, OCDOT ripped them out.
They're right on top of all the problems in Oakland.
Is in charge of 806 miles of paved streets. According to the grand jury, between 2009 and 2016, Oakland paved an average of 9 miles a year. At that rate, the city's streets would only be repaved every 80 years. But it's not.
Well, maybe the thought is, at this pace, the next time we're going to have to repave the whole city, we won't need the roads because everyone's going to be in a hover car.
Or dead.
But it's not cheap. Street paving costs an estimated $1 million per mile. Other problems seen.
You doing a good bid for that process?
Yeah, those no-bid contracts really don't work out for the consumer.
Other problems seen on Oakland streets include cracking and broken pavement. Here on 40th Street Way, you can see chunks of loose asphalt.
I hope they don't have a peaceful protest anytime soon with all that loose asphalt.
Chunks of loose asphalt.
This street is...
Welcome to Oakland. We're a little dilapidated right now.
Looks like the surface of the moon.
Welcome to Oakland. We're a fixer-upper.
This street is unbelievable. Yeah, it's sort of embarrassing to ask my clients to park here and, they get flat tires and...
Potholes.
Yeah, your friends don't come back.
You almost need a monster truck to drive up there.
Potholes also create an expensive liability for the city. The grand jury reports Oakland receives hundreds of claims every year, costing the city more than $15 million in lawsuits.
This is the same exact cycle of debt that we're in with the city of Los Angeles. The city of LA ignored their sidewalks for decades and decades and decades. People slip and fall and hurt themselves on the sidewalks. They sue, and then the city says, we don't have any money to fix the sidewalks. And the problem continues and gets worse and worse and worse. And you wonder why these major cities are all broke.
When Karen Bass went up to Sacramento looking for a bailout, she blamed it on the fires and on lawsuits against the city.
Between July 2021 and June 2024, Chris Kokafer says dealing with the aftermath of a pothole tends to land on the driver, and she wishes her tax dollars would go to preventing them altogether.
Well, that's not going to happen. If you wanted to vote for Lauren Taylor, maybe. But no, we decided to go for Barbara Lee. Speaks for me.
Quite frankly.
Yeah, let's go for a 900-year-old communist. That'll fix things.
We're not going to have any money for the potholes with Barbara Lee's $50 an hour minimum wage.
Well, I wouldn't have to deal with my insurance. I wouldn't have to pay out of pocket. I wouldn't.
Oh, don't go through your insurance for a pothole.
Oh, no. No, then your homeowner's insurance will get dropped, too.
I wouldn't have the inconvenience. Both times I was with my kids and it was dark. Second time I broke down and cried in front of my kids.
Oh, boy.
How much you want to bet mommy's on Xanax now?
People can report potholes by using the city's Oak 311 system.
I'm sure they'll get right to it.
Yeah, if you're getting carjacked, they tell you to go online and fill out a form.
The city prioritizes complaints that could pose a higher risk of injury. People here in the Piedmont neighborhood say they've reported major issues, but nothing's been done.
Well, that's Oakland to a T.
Well, I love the fact that if a neighborhood is seeing a spike in crime, they say, oh, how about getting some cameras? How about getting some lights? How about getting a dog? And then when something goes down and you get robbed and you say, okay, well, I was told that I should put up a Ring camera and I have all the footage of the home getting robbed. Would you, Mr. Policeman, like to see it? Nah, we don't need that.
I'm Sarah Stinson reporting in Oakland, KRON 4 News.
Well, the grand jury report also found that Oakland relies primarily on bond measures to pay for repaving. In a statement to KRON 4,
Yes, let's tax the citizens even more for basic services.
Well, this is what happens in cities where theft is common and graft is common among the politicians. When the politicians are stealing and they're lining their own pockets or lining the pockets of their friends and cronies, the money has to come from somewhere. The money comes from the public, which means it's the tax money that you send to the city that's being stolen by the politicians and their friends. So whenever you have what is essentially a kleptocracy, what you end up with is you end up with taxes that only go one way, and that's up. Because the more theft you have, the more money you need. That's the way it works.
The city has to pay for those fancy contracts for California Waste Solutions so the dongs can steal from all the citizens and Oakland looks the other way. And then they have to pass sales tax increases to pay for the rest of the budget.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. If the dongs don't have the money they need, they're not going to be sitting courtside at those Golden State Warriors games. Oh, no. They'll be in the cheap seats, and we can't have that.
You know, if the dongs were into online sports betting, I bet you that Rob Bonta wouldn't be ruling against it.
Yeah, no kidding. He's not going to bite the hand that feeds him. Earlier this week, I was invited to appear on the Fox 11 News on KTTV in Los Angeles with anchor Alex Michelson to talk about the primary in the New York City mayor's race and Gavin Newsom's desire to be Donald Trump's foil. Let's go ahead and listen to how it sounded.
Some New Yorkers are still celebrating Zohran Mamdani's win last night, seen as shaking up the status quo. He is now the presumptive Democratic candidate for New York City mayor in the fall, beating out former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had the endorsements of Democratic heavyweights like Bill Clinton and Michael Bloomberg. But tonight, some Democrats across the country are rejecting the 33-year-old Mamdani and his progressive politics. Some Republicans are quick to use Mamdani to portray the Democrats as extremists. Radio host John Phillips is here to weigh in. John, of course, can be heard on KABC Radio on the John Phillips Show every day from noon to 3. Great to see you, John.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right. So what is your take on this very progressive mayor?
Well, he's beyond very progressive. He is a self-described socialist. And not
Democratic socialist, they like to say.
Yes. Not in the mold of Bernie Sanders, but in the mold of what you learned about in political science school, where the government owns the means of production. One of the things that he said he wants to do is he wants the city of New York to own the supermarkets. which could you imagine what life would be like if the state of California owned the supermarkets? They'd set the Guinness Book World Record for number of expired milk cartons sold. Maybe, I don't know, the periodicals would be more current at your dentist's office than at the grocery store. But that's what this guy is advocating for. And it's not the first time that something like this has happened. In fact, it happened here in California. And it happened when the writer, Upton Sinclair, another socialist, ran for governor. And he ran during the Great Depression when people were very worried about the economic future of the country and their families and everything else. And he ran on the EPIC program, the End Poverty in California, where he wanted the state of California to own film production. He wanted them to own the farms, the oil industry, everything. And he was on track, a dynamic kind of guy, a popular author, to win the election until the powers that be in California, which back then was William Randolph Hearst, the Chandler family, and Louis B. Mayer. And they basically kneecapped him and said, we cannot allow the state to be destroyed. Yeah. And I think what you're going to see in New York is something similar to that, where New York City is where many of the financial houses are headquartered. There's a lot of money in New York City, a lot of people whose livelihoods will be threatened should this guy be elected. And I think you're going to see them get together, clear the field, get behind one candidate, probably Eric Adams. And I don't think it's a slam dunk that the socialist is going to win.
Do you think Cuomo's got any shot if he runs as an independent?
One of them will, whether it's Sliwa or Eric Adams or Cuomo. Yeah. The moneyed people, the moneyed interests there whose businesses would be destroyed are going to have to figure out some process to find out which candidate has the most viability, get behind one horse, and then give the socialist everything you got.
It's interesting because you use such an older reference. I thought you were going to go to George Gascon, which here in Southern California, obviously a bit of a progressive experiment that voters here took and then voters rejected. They didn't like the results of that, choosing a more tough-on-crime person here in progressive L.A. This idea of free rides on buses and trains is something L.A. is actually doing the opposite of right now, trying to increase fare enforcement because they realize that a lot of the people that ride for free are not necessarily the people that you want to be on there, causing a lot of the criminal problems. So it's interesting to see that L.A.'s kind of gone in the other direction. Meanwhile, let's talk for a moment about Governor Gavin Newsom. You've got a column that's going to come out soon for the Southern California News Group, arguing that all of this national attention for him, this ICE raids, a lawsuit, Trump versus Newsom, is a political win for Newsom.
Yes, because he's positioning himself as the chief foil to Donald Trump. Democrats voters are not happy with Democratic leadership in Congress because they feel like they aren't fighting back tough enough against Donald Trump, whether it's Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, fill in the blank. And what Gavin Newsom is doing right now is he is trying to portray himself as the leader of the resistance against Donald Trump. And right now there's an appetite for that in the Democratic Party. And he's doing that by nationalizing all of these issues. Because if you, based on performance, the insurance crisis in California, or homelessness, or crime, or the budget, or fire mitigation, or the French Laundry, or fill in the blank, the guy fails. But if he's just trashing Donald Trump right and left, and he's talking about abortion and all subjects that really don't have much to do with the governor's power in the state of California, then he wins, because in California, Democrats outnumber Republicans by 2-1. And then if you're running for president, he's not running in the general election. He'd be a Democratic primary. So the only people he would be talking to are Democratic voters, and they're responding well to what he's doing right now by nationalizing all of these subjects that were basically local news items.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He's also using some of the strategies that Mandami used, which is to get real aggressive on social media as well, via TikTok and Instagram Reels and all the rest of it, and to try to talk to a younger generation doing that. And we've seen his following go way up. We've also seen that for Mandami, and maybe that's a way to get younger voters involved. Meanwhile, I know you say that it's not great for Senate candidates when you nationalize this. You can check out more of John, by the way, on KABC 790 weekdays from from noon to 3 p.m. If you ever missed the show, you can also check it out in podcast form as well. John, always great to talk to you.
Having me, and congratulations to Hal Eisner.
Congratulations to Hal Eisner, well said, who is retiring. His final episode of In Depth airs Sunday at 9 a.m. right here on Fox 11. We'll have more on that throughout the week, but thanks, John, for saying that as well.
Thank you.
As you can see, I need to get rid of Charter Communications and see what Elon has to offer.
You need a new laptop, too.
Yeah, no kidding. It kind of looked like liquor store security footage, didn't it?
HD on one side and a 15-year-old laptop on the other.
What are you going to do?